Hi, my name is Steve and I want to thank you for taking time to watch my video. In this video we're going to look at how to make a kitless pen on a wood lathe. My prior set of videos we used both the metal lathe and the wood lathe. I had a number of questions asking if you could do it just on the wood lathe, and you sure can. A little bit of difference in how we accomplish that. I've got a piece of blue and black ebonite here that we're going to start with. I've got enough to do the body and the section, and I'm going to have to order some more of this material in order to be able to do the cap. But let's take a look at the tools that we're going to be needing and the tools that we're going to be using in the project, and then we'll get to work. Here are most of the tools I think that we're going to be using for our pen. And let's start over with the body of the pen. We're going to use a P-bit and a 5/16. The P-bit is the bit that's required for the threads on the 9mm by 0.75 tap. And then we'll use the 5/16 just to go to kind of narrow the hole up a little bit to give us more room to work if we want to shape the body of the pen any narrower than the one that I have here. For the cap of the pen, we're going to need a 7/16 inch drill bit, and that will allow us to thread the 12mm by the 12mm triple start. And then we're going to, that was a 7/16 inch bit, then we're going to use the 3/8 inch bit to go up a little bit further, just to, again, narrow the hole down a little bit. And then on the end where the finial goes, we're going to use a B bit, and that's going to allow us to use a 7mm by 1 tap. For the finial itself, we've got our 7mm by 1 die, and then on the section we're going to use an A bit and a K bit, and we've got the 5mm tap that we're going to use so that the box section will fit into that, and then the 9mm by 0.75 for the threads that'll thread the section to the body. A couple other things we're going to use is a centering bit, and this is to start the hole that you drill, just to center drill it so that it starts nice and even, nice and straight. I've got a 1/4 inch reamer here. I use that to ream out the end of the section where the converter fits, so that the converter will fit in there nice and snugly. I've got a die holder to hold the dies while we turn. And I think that's pretty much it. If there's anything else that we need along the way, we will address it at that time. Now, I had a 5-inch piece of material here, so I cut it to 1.5 inches and about 3.5 inches. We need for the section maybe about 1.25 inches thereabouts, and for the body of the pan about 3.25 inches, so this should give us plenty to work with. I've got the body of the pen in the chuck here and got the center drill already here. Let's go ahead and center drill that piece. I've got my P-bit in the chuck right now, ready to drill the hole so that we can thread the body for the section to fit into it. Just a little bit more about why I chose a P-bit. I'm using a 9mm by 0.75 tap and die for my section. If you're going to be using the El Grande feed section, you're going to want to use a 10mm by 1 tap and die. In that case, you're going to use the T-bit. The way you decide what size bit to use, you take the first number, either 9 or 10, say the 10, Subtract the second number, which is 1, and that tells you need a 9mm bit. If you're using the 9 by 0.75, you would need an 8.75mm bit, which the P bit is very close to that. How deep do we need to drill our 5/16 inch hole? We're going to measure the distance from the section to the end of the converter, and we're going to see it's just a little over 3 inches. In this case we have about 3.1 inches, and that may vary a little bit depending on how you create your section. If you want to have the threads go down a little bit further so that the converter sticks up into the pen or into the body of the pen a little bit further, that's going to change that depth. Sometimes you may want to make the section first and then make the body to fit it. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and make the body first, since I'm modeling it after a prior pen, and we'll make our section to fit the body. I've got the 5/16 inch bit chucked up here. Got a mark on the bit so I know that how deep I want to drill it. One of the things I suppose a person could do, if you didn't drill it quite deep enough, you can always drill it a little bit deeper once the pen is completed, if you're very careful, if you didn't quite have enough room. You don't want to drill it too deep because you want to have something that is going to hold that converter in place just in case. Now when I made this mark, I saw that I had to go to the end of the mark. So we'll just pass that and call that good. When we tap, we're going to have lubricant on our material. And so I'm using this Crisco spray cooking oil. I think some of the other guys use Pam and maybe some of the different ones. I haven't experimented a lot. This is what we have up in the kitchen. Had my own can down here for a while, but when it ran out I had to start borrowing the one from the kitchen. Go ahead and put it on our material and a little bit on the tap. I put a slight pressure on the end of the tailstock as I go into the material. And I turn in and then back out a little. In, back out a little. Now this, again, the ebonite seems to thread really nicely. Other materials like that casein I was working with, I want to be a lot more careful of that. And as I get in here a little bit deeper, I'm going to take smaller turns too. And now that we have the body of our pen drilled and tapped, it's time to test and see how well our section fits in here. Now this is the section that I made the other day for my casein pen, and it looks like it fits real well. Now we're going to put the tenon on the end of the body where the cap is going to screw onto. The distance that the number of turns that it takes to turn that cap on is determined by how long the tenon is. I'm going to make this tenon about 180 thousandths, something like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and mark it like this. This is one of the things that is easier done on the wood lathe, because when I try to get a whatever it is 500 thousandths diameter tenon, I can get it right at 500 thousandths. On the wood lathe I have a little bit more trouble, but I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue. I'm going to go ahead and try the parting tool. The diameter that I need to cut that tenon down to is about 12 millimeters. And so that is about 472 thousandths, 470 thousandths in there somewhere. About 519 thousandths. Or 73 on the end there. So what I did there, I took my narrow parting tool that I made just out of a piece of 1/16 inch by 1/2 inch by 4.5 inch high-speed steel, and cut the diameter right next to the body down to about 450 thousandths. And so hopefully that'll be enough that the cap will be able to screw nice and tightly onto the body of the pen. Now here's where our die holder comes in, and we'll go ahead and mount that in the chuck. File just a little bit on the outer edge here, put a little bit of an angle to help the threads start. The other thing that you might want to do, and this isn't nearly, I don't think, as important on the ebonite as it is on some of the more brittle materials, but that is either to make a plug for the inside, or I've got a ring here that'll thread onto the outside depending on which threads you do first. For more brittle materials like that casein, they like to do the outside first because that gives you plenty of support on the inside. I'll go ahead and put some of the spray on the materials there. Again, we're going to put just a little bit of pressure on the tailstock as I turn it. Since this is a triple start thread, I really want to be careful and not take very big amounts of material off before I back up. So I'm going to take a half a turn or so here to get started, and then we'll start backing off. Now let's go ahead and back that off and just see what we have. Okay, I ran that through it one more time here, and yeah, much better. Much better. No resistance there until it gets to the end. So I think we did good there. After we finish putting the threads on the outside of our body here, I turned the blank around, put it back in the chuck, took my countersink bit with a 60-degree angle on here, and countersunk it so that the live center would fit in there. Kind of thing gives me a little bit more support while I'm turning, so probably don't know if it's necessary to have it there. I did leave enough material on the end here, so once I'm done shaping it and everything, I can go ahead and cut the end off and shape the end the way I like it. Again, this is not a beginner's video on how to use lathe tools or how to turn pens. It's an advanced video, so I'm not going to go ahead and show you how to shape it. Go ahead and do that any way that you want. And once we're completed, we'll go ahead and show it to you. I don't know how well this shows up, but the pen on the left is both of the pens have the same diameter threads on the outer diameter for the cap to screw onto, and that's a 12 millimeter. The pen on the left uses a 9 millimeter tap. The one on the right uses a 10 millimeter tap. So you can see maybe the difference in wall thickness. I finished the pen, shaping it, sanding it, and running it through the buffer. And here it is. How well you can see that, but it did turn out pretty well.